Hello again, college football fans. It is October 8th, 2023, Sunday, the day after week 6. And obviously, I'm just going to go right into it. Alabama traveled to College Station. We all know that. And they came away with a 26-20 final. Now, what does all that mean? It's a huge win against a really good team on the road. A really legit, top-notch, top-level SEC defense in their place. So I should be ecstatic about that, but I do have a little bit of mixed emotions coming out of this game, and I'm trying not to, because the feeling I think that a lot of us had, and I certainly had going into this game, was that if we could come out of it with a win, then it puts us right back in the thick of the college football playoff situation. And I mean, we never really have been out of it. We when we lost to Texas, we were put on the margins of that conversation, and this win certainly took us a little bit off of those margins and a little bit closer to the center of it. But for reasons that I'll get into later, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready to set my expectations that high for Alabama just yet. And we'll talk more about that later. Now, the headline coming out of this game is Bama overcomes some of its same old problems that it's been having for the last couple of years. Problems that we hoped that we had cleaned up, but I think that might have been a little bit of fool's gold because we had been at home against lesser competition on the road last week, and certainly not. Certainly we haven't played the level of front seven on that Texas A&M defensive front up until Saturday. And I know that definitely contributed to all those false start penalties. 14. I'm just going to read these stats for you, and if anybody had told me that this was going to be the case, there's no way I could have ever believed that Alabama would have got out of there with a victory. Penalties, 14 for 99 yards. That's just more of the same over the last couple of years. False start penalties were the real problem as far as the number of penalties. Now, the good thing about false starts is they only penalize you 5 yards for those. So it's sort of a give or take kind of situation. I mean, you would definitely like to give those up, but I'll take those over the 15-yard personal foul penalties, and we got a few of those too. We've cut down on those more so and sort of increased on the false start penalties. I honestly usually have a theory about why anything with the Alabama football team is going on, but I got no answers as to how to fix that or why that is. That for the last couple 3 seasons we just have had some flinchy offensive linemen, and we've got to get that fixed. But that's a broken record at this point. Everybody knows they got to get it fixed, and we've all said, Coach Saban has said, we got to clean it up. But I'm starting to doubt whether or not we're going to be able to do that. Turnovers, we lost the turnover battle 2-1. 23 yards rushing with a 0.9 yard per carry average. That's got to be the worst rushing performance any Nick Saban Alabama team has had, right? I mean, if it's not, it's up there. So the offensive line seems to be the last of our big problems that we certainly have to clean up, definitely if we want to talk about college football playoff, and also if we want to talk about getting back to Atlanta as the Western Division representative in the championship game. At the end of the game, everybody in the country has been talking about Miami not kneeling on the ball. Well, we did the same thing. I haven't heard any of the national talking heads mention that. We did the same exact thing and just got away with it. It was so funny because I was so excited that we decided to pass on third down instead of just, taking our third run, getting their last time out, and then just punting the ball away and hoping they can't drive the field in around a minute with no timeouts. Now, I don't think they could have, and nobody in that stadium probably thought they could have with the way our defense had performed against them that whole afternoon. But, that could have been a disastrous thing. That circus catch that Jace made to keep that drive going, that ended the game. It was less than 2 minutes. They had no timeouts. It's time for victory formation, and let's get this thing to the house. But that's not what happened. As a matter of fact, it was an incomplete pass, which is the worst thing that could have happened, because that's why we had to do that funky thing at the end where we ran around and threw the ball up in the air. Luckily, that worked for us. But I saw that Saban was pretty angry with Jalen about that. And yeah, Jalen should have been aware of what was going on, but I'm going to put that on the head coach because he had plenty of time to see that they were getting into a formation that was not the victory formation, which had me curious. I was like, what are we going to do? Just run the ball on the first down and then kneel it out? Because I know sometimes coaches do that. Saban's never really done that as far as have a memory of. So that was very, very curious, and we got away with a lot of mistakes in this ball game. But the headline of the headline is the word overcome. We overcame the mistakes and won a huge game on the road in the SEC, and now we're in the driver's seat in the SEC West, and so we're all happy about that. But it's just more of the same as far as these mistakes. Now, good things Alabama did in this ball game, obviously, number one is the defense. I mean, I think that the media is finally starting to come around to the fact that this defense is a vintage Alabama Nick Saban defense. Best one we've had since, I got to say his name again, Pete Golding. And I hate to keep piling on him, but the fact that we've been so good now this season even more highlights the fact that we just did not look the same under him. I mean, the intensity, the execution, and the physicality just was not there for the last 5 seasons, and all of a sudden it's back with Kevin Steele at the helm, and, thank goodness for all that. The other reason that we were able to overcome mistakes and win this ball game, Jalen Milroe. I cannot compliment Jalen Milroe enough. I did not think... First of all, I didn't think he had that kind of a passing performance in him. Secondly, even if he did, now we all knew that he was good at throwing the long ball, but I never thought that Tommy Rees and Nick Saban would dial up that many long balls. I mean, I think they were just kind of forced to because of the way the run game was just completely shut down. And I'm glad that they were forced to because, this definitely is going to put other defenses that we play the rest of the way out on notice. That, you can go ahead and fill the box up with defenders, but unless you get to Jalen Milroe with a sack, he can hurt you, and he can hurt you bad. And, kudos to the O-line for that, because that is the improvement that I guess we've seen so far in the O-line, is that they were able to bow up and pass protect and give him enough time for enough stretches throughout the game. Obviously, they had breakdowns plenty of times. We gave up, 5 sacks, I think, which, we've been giving up a lot of sacks. That's just part of our game this year on offense, but we have been able to overcome them, and we were able to against a great front seven yesterday. So those are definitely things that we want to continue to build on and continue to improve on. But one of the huge reasons that Jalen Milroe was able to have the day that he had is because of Jermaine Burton. And that's going to segue into this segment of things that I was right and wrong about. Well, I was kind of right and wrong about a lot of things in this ball game. I said that, Alabama had been long overdue for a breakout performance by an offensive skill player, and they certainly got one out of Jermaine Burton. He was not on the top of my list as one of the guys to do that. I even mentioned him specifically a couple of videos back about how I felt like we kind of knew what he was, and he's a very good receiver, but just not the guy kind of receiver. Well, he was the guy yesterday in College Station for sure. I just hope that he can continue that and put a few of those games like that or similar together in a row, because that would be the difference between him and somebody like, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, or Devontae Smith. Is they had games like that, and they had a lot of games like that. Not saying that Jermaine hasn't had good games before. He has had good games before, but nothing like I saw yesterday. And let's just hope that he can keep that up, and maybe some other guys join in on that party that he threw in College Station. I was right about it being tough sledding for the run game. Had no idea it would be that tough. That was very concerning when you think about the future of this season. But it's just more of the same of what I've been saying, which is, and I haven't really put a whole lot of the blame on the offensive line. I think that's obvious. I mean, the run blocking is not what it should be by that offensive line. And that is certainly going to be a point of emphasis, because you can tell it's really getting under Nick Saban's skin. He mentioned it all through those sideline interviews that they do on CBS during the game. He mentioned it after in his postseason press conference or post-game press conference. So I imagine that's going to be a big point of emphasis leading up to the Arkansas game this week in practice, and I hope to see a more concerted effort by our offense to get the run game going, to get it to. I'm not going to expect it to be dominant this year, but we have to get it to a point that we can rely on it a little bit to give Jalen Milroe some help. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm so blown away by his performance, is because he was getting no help from the run game at all and was still able to pull off so many great long throws. Now, he's still struggling with the short pass, and we'll talk some more about that later. Intermediate pass, I guess, and short pass for that matter. About the score, I was right and wrong a little bit about that. I predicted a 27-17 final with an Alabama victory. And, you know, if Dallas Turner doesn't get that little blindside block on the blocked field goal, that game probably ends 31-17. But, you know, it got to 26-17. And I was thinking at that point, oh, wow, you know, the way our defense is playing, there's a real good chance that I might be 1 point off of this final. But, of course, the defense had those two really bad, and those were those were the worst penalties of the game, in my opinion. Those that holding penalty on Amos, and then that personal foul, I believe it was a roughing the passer, that got them past midfield and allowed them to get that big play that took them down. You know, we thought it was a touchdown there at the beginning. But kudos to the defense for recovering and keeping them out of the end zone and forcing that field goal, which, you know, if it had gotten to a 2-point game, I don't know if I could have stood the rest of that one. Saban versus Jimbo. You know, I know I talked about Saban botching the kneel down at the end. But, you know, you can't give Nick Saban enough credit. I mean, and him versus Jimbo is kind of a good illustration for me, because Jimbo Fisher is obviously a very good head coach. He won a national championship at Florida State. But that's the difference. He won a national championship, and he had a phenom at quarterback at Jameis Winston when he was down there. And that's what normally happens for coaches, even the best of the best. They get to a point in their tenure, wherever they're at, where they get the right guys, they get a great class, good quarterback, whatever the case may be, and they, you know, get a national championship, maybe two out of that group. And then that's it for them. You know, that's the vast majority of coaches that have won national championships. That's how it happens for them. I mean, even the great Tom Osborne at Nebraska, that was just about a 4 or 5 year window there where he got those 3 national championships in the early to mid 90s. And that's just the way it goes. But the fact that Saban has managed to get so many of these national championships with so many, not only 2 different teams, obviously, but just class after class after class, different players, different guys, that's just phenomenal. And to me, that's why Nick Saban is referred to as the greatest of all time. And I just wanted to point that out. You know, you got to give the guy some love before he's gone. He'll be deified by all of us after he's gone, but right now he's still the head coach, so he still gets some criticism from all of us diehards, especially at Alabama. That's just the way we are. But I wanted to go ahead and give him his just desserts right here for a little bit before he's gone. Now, that's pretty much all that I need to say about the game. Again, great win. Very excited about the prospects for our future. We are 100% the driver's seat occupants in the SEC West right now. But it's still, you know, there's a long way to go to get that. And about the rest of the SEC around the West, the team that scares me the most is LSU. Not so much because I feel like they're the scariest team that's left on our schedule, although they probably are. But they only have 1 loss, and it's not us that is the loss. So if they beat us, then they're in the driver's seat. I mean, you know, granted, or that we're giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be able to beat Auburn at home. If Auburn was able to pull that one off, that would be amazing. I mean, you could pretty much go ahead and book your hotel room in Atlanta if you're an Alabama fan, if that happens. because Texas A&M obviously and Ole Miss only have the one loss, but it's to us. So we have to lose twice. We have to lose 2 more conference games in order for them to get back into the driver's seat or be able to control their own destiny. So here's hoping for Auburn next week, right down there in Baton Rouge. But the thing that scares me the most about LSU, and it's pretty obvious, it's Jayden Daniels. I mean, Jayden Daniels has a very good argument for being the best player in college football right now, and he's the kind of player that gives great defenses fits, and because I've seen it before out of guys like Deshaun Watson and Johnny Manziel, and the list goes on from there, and we all know Tim Tebow. I guess you could put him on that list. Cam Newton, these kind of guys that can run and throw at the highest of levels, and he can certainly do that. And like I mentioned before about all those problems that we still have on offense, could be a bad day for Jalen Milroe. And don't think that just because LSU has had some bad games on defense that they cannot have a good day on defense against us, because we are not that dynamic of an offense right now outside of Jermaine Burton and Jalen Milroe right now. We don't have the dynamic backs. Our offensive line still has spotty play here and there, especially when it comes to run. But I could easily see LSU having a good day defensively against our offense. And, our defense is great. I will give you that. But guys like Jayden Daniels can really give defenses even as good as ours a long afternoon. So LSU is definitely the biggest test that I see for us left on the schedule. But it's like I heard Paul Feinbaum say on that Matt Berry show this morning that we're the kind of team that could slip up against anybody. I'm going to talk more about the Arkansas game here in a little bit, but every conference game that we have left, we could find a way to lose it. That's for certain. Ole Miss and Texas A&M, I just mentioned them. They're still kind of in the West race. Now, Auburn is not, I don't think, I mean, they've got 2 conference losses now, so they're not in the SEC West race. But they're still mysterious to me because first-year coach, and we know he's a good coach. And I wouldn't be surprised if they are able to turn a corner and beat some teams that you would be surprised for them to beat. Now, in the SEC East, and before I go into the East, one of the big narratives has been the SEC is wide open this year. And, well, now here we are halfway through the season, and you've got Alabama in the driver's seat in the West, and you've got Georgia and everybody else in the East. So it's not so wide open, and it's not so surprising what's going on right now in the conference. I'm going to pat myself on the back. I was pretty confident in the fact that Georgia was going to smack Kentucky around, and they certainly did. And they looked like a national championship team in that game because they got up early. I mean, they took any chance Kentucky had, any hope they had of winning that ball game right away from them. I mean, I think probably halfway through the first quarter, Kentucky fans and Kentucky players and even the Kentucky coach didn't have a whole lot of hope of coming out of Athens with a W, and they certainly did not. Other teams that might have a chance to spoil Georgia's party this year, well, they've still got Tennessee, they've got Ole Miss. Tennessee's on the road, but Tennessee is still sort of a little bit of a mystery. They lost to Florida, but that was in the swamp, so you can kind of maybe give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt on that one, but they haven't really looked like gangbusters, and they certainly haven't looked at all like the team that they had last year. So the jury is still out on them, and we'll know certainly more about them in the next 2 weeks because they got Texas A&M next week and then us. So Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin could have a good day, but I don't see Ole Miss's defense being able to slow down Carson Beck enough to be able to come out of Athens, and it's between the hedges. So it looks like you can go ahead and coronate Georgia. I certainly wouldn't coronate Alabama yet, but you can go ahead and book Georgia for Atlanta. But and that doesn't mean that they can't slip up and lose a game. But at this point, I don't think anybody in the East is going to be able to challenge them if they lose, even if Georgia does lose a conference game, I don't think there's anybody that's going to have less than 2 in that division. And if they don't have 2, the one they have is probably going to be Georgia. So I feel confident in saying Georgia has gotten themselves in a pretty great position for that SEC East championship. Now across the country, I have put together another top 4. And going into this, before I go into this top 4, I'm going to talk about some other teams, because one of the reasons why I still am not ready now, if Alabama had been able to complete that field goal block touchdown and get out of Texas A&M with not, maybe cut the number of penalties in half, and if we had been able to sort of even up the turnover battle and not and been able to run a little bit, then I would have been maybe more confident in putting them further into the college football playoff discussion. But right now, as an Alabama fan, I think we still need to tamper down our expectations. And SEC West Championship, 4 straight against Auburn, that's where we need to stay right now. And the main reason is not so much because of Alabama, how they're playing, and the fact that they have a loss. The main reason is because there's still so many undefeated teams out there in Power 5 conferences in college football. That's another narrative that I heard early, and I think I'm still hearing from a lot of people, that this is going to be a wild year and that this might be the year that a 2-loss team gets into the college football playoffs. Well, teams are going to have to start getting to losing. Now, I know it's going to happen, and I know these dominoes can fall very, very quickly from week to week, especially now that we're in October. But for right now, there's a lot of scenarios I could come up with that, the idea of a 1-loss SEC champion not being a college football playoff team seems absolutely ludicrous and out of the realm of possibility. But when you start looking at these undefeated teams that are left, I can definitely come up with a scenario. Number 1 in my top 4 is Florida State. They continue to roll right along. I don't see how they've done anything that would, I had them at number 1, so they haven't done anything to make me want to knock them down. But in the ACC, we still got North Carolina. You still got Louisville, all undefeated. FSU, North Carolina, Louisville. They don't play each other in the regular season. Now, they'll probably, a combination of those 3 will play in their championship game in the ACC. But, and I know that's a long way off, but it could happen. You could have two ACC teams vying for playoff spots. Georgia, I've got at number 2. I think their performance against Kentucky was enough to get me out of that benefit of the doubt slot at number 4 that I gave them, and put them up at number 2. I'm not ready to put them ahead of Florida State, because if Florida State and Georgia played today, I don't know. Carson Beck looked good, but I still like Florida State's receivers, and I think Florida State has as good, if not a better, defense as Georgia right now. So I feel pretty comfortable with FSU at 1 and Georgia at 2. Number 3, I got Ohio State. I think they're still in the same spot that I had them last week. They haven't done anything to knock them down. They had a very impressive victory against an undefeated conference team. It was at home, but they took care of their business, and they got punched in the mouth there in the first half of that ball game. They came out in the second half and put it away pretty easily, and that's what championship teams look like. Number 4, I hate to do this because I hate Jim Harbaugh, and I don't like Michigan. I think they're maybe the most overrated program in the history of college football. But the way they are winning ball games, I can't keep them out of the top 4 any longer. I know that it's not that great a competition, but championship teams, that's the way they play against not great competition, is exactly how Michigan is played. So I got them in there at number 4. And you look at the Big Ten, they've still got Ohio State, they've still got Michigan and Penn State, all with no losses. And we've seen before, the team that loses the Ohio State-Michigan game and the winner go to the college football playoff. So and aside from that, we've got Oregon and Washington. They will play next week and take care of that. But you still got USC that's undefeated. Now, I know everybody's pretty sure that they're going to fall off a cliff here sooner rather than later, but that still remains to be seen. Now, Oklahoma, Texas. There's another scenario. I mean, ESPN guys are talking like it's a foregone conclusion that they are going to face each other in that Big 12 championship game. And if they do, and Texas doesn't lose the rest of the way, and neither does Oklahoma, Texas wins that ball game, you're sitting with one-loss Oklahoma and Texas. Both of them could go to the college football playoff game very, very easily. So that's why I'm saying let's not insert Alabama too far into that college football playoff discussion just yet, because we've still got so much business to take care of, and a lot of business needs to be taken care of around the country. Like, I know it's just early October, and like I said, these things can happen pretty quickly and take care of themselves, and they normally do 99% of the time take care of themselves pretty easily and quickly, but it's still got to happen. Now, talking about Alabama, Arkansas, I think that every team, as I said earlier, on Alabama's schedule, I can think of a scenario to happen where they would win. Now, what makes Arkansas dangerous to me, number one, is the fact that they've lost 4 games in a row. They certainly were not expecting that to happen going into this season. Sam Pittman, I still think, is a good coach. He has fallen off of his pedestal a little bit since that first couple of years that he had at Arkansas. I think that his recruiting has maybe fallen down, because the thing that made them so dangerous in that 2021 season was that Trayvon Burks that they had at receiver. But they are a wounded animal right now, very, very wounded, and they've still got a good veteran quarterback, and one of the only things that could salvage their season at this point would be beating Bama, and we know how that works, especially for SEC West teams. When they're down in the dumps, that's just about the only thing that they could do that would be something to be proud of, and it would be something to be proud of for the whole program and for the history of the program. If a team like that was able to pull off a victory over Bama, we still hold that kind of cachet, especially right now that we're in control of things in the West. And another reason why this game could be dangerous is we just still need a lot of improvement, especially on the offensive line, especially in the running game. I'm going to keep saying it until I see it. And now would be a great time, in my opinion, to start bringing in the younger guys at running back. Like I said, I don't want to put any too much of the blame on Roydell and Jace, but and it's not blame. It's just I just don't think that they're elite running backs. And Justice Haynes might be. Jam Miller might be. My money would be on Justice, but I hear a lot of great things about Jam as well. And, it might not make any difference at all. And I'm not going to question Saban too much. He sees him in practice. And what I imagine he's probably worried about is other things like run blocking or pass blocking and that sort of thing that running backs have to do. And I completely understand that. And that's why I completely understand and didn't expect for him to insert them in any significant playing time against Texas A&M, because that team was too good and that game was too important. You had to go with the guys that you trusted. But more so than Jalen Hale, who I still think could be a potentially game-breaking wide receiver, I think that's one of the few things I can think of at this point that might help our running game get a little bit better. And it's just got to improve, because there's going to be a point, even if it's all the way looking ahead to playing Georgia in Atlanta, we're going to have to be able to run the ball when we want to run the ball, or we're going to lose another game, and that's almost certain. That's almost a 100% certainty in my mind. And I think that's going to do it for this week's recap and little peek ahead of next week. So, number one mantra if you're an Alabama fan, let's get that running game going. Thanks for watching.